This is the starting lineup. Here's your host, Karl Schoening.
Welcome into the starting lineup. I'm Karl Schoening, starting at the host and the voice coming through your speakers. Two-man starting lineup this late night show, early morning show, depending on what time you might be listening. LG on the other side as the starting audio technician today. And you know us, the world of sports never sleeps. The NCAA wants the basketball tournament expanded. Diana Rossini is not escaping the allegations, and the NBA draft lottery will be reformed. But of course, our top story in San Antonio, you could probably still hear the echoes of the honking on Commerce Street. Spurs win Game 5 against the Portland Trail Blazers in not quite dominant fashion, but they jump out really quickly, and then they end up coming away with the victory, 114-95, winning that series 4-1. We were both in the building, and LG, you could really tell that the energy was electric. Spurs fans were ready to close this game out and give their team perhaps a full week of rest before the start of the second round.
It was loud in there. I had my noise-canceling earbuds on, and I could still hear the crowd through the noise-canceling. It was probably the loudest game I've heard all playoffs.
Yeah, I was getting noise. My watch tells me noise warnings. You're in a loud environment. Be sure to protect your ears, all of that good stuff. From the jump, it started with Keldon Johnson getting his Sixth Man of the Year award. Manu Ginobili came out. That might have been the loudest cheer all night when Manu sort of handed the torch from one sixth man to another to Keldon Johnson. And it felt like it really got the Spurs off to a hot start. The Spurs started off on a 12-2 run and really didn't look back. The Blazers in the fourth quarter did cut it to 9 at one point, but it seemed like the Spurs had built up the largest lead of the evening, a 28-point lead. It was a 20-point lead at the half, and San Antonio did it in San Antonio Spurs fashion, the way we sort of expected this team to operate at this point. All five starters scored in double figures. Dylan Harper, as always, phenomenal off of the bench. As for the Spurs, you have De'Aaron Fox coming in clutch. As fourth quarter, Fox finishes with 13 points in the fourth quarter and 21 points in the game to lead the Spurs in scoring. Julian Champagnie, sharpshooter, drops five made three-pointers for 19 points.
I was waiting for a game like this for Julian. It's about time. I was hoping it would have happened earlier in this series, but he showed up tonight. Last night.
He's been good. I don't have his numbers in front of me, but I don't think that there's. I'm going right to his page here.
Yeah, 19 points in 30 minutes, 6 for 9 from the field.
Yeah, he averaged 8 points on 57% shooting from three in this series. He hasn't, he might have had one bad game in there, but for somebody who plays his role so well, he really did have a phenomenal game. And the thing was, Victor Wembanyama only had 17 points, but that's because they were double teaming him anytime he was anywhere in the paint, and they just dared the Spurs to hit jumper shots. And
that's true.
On the other side, Victor Wembanyama also sort of dared the Blazers to hit jump shots because they had him, whoever he might have been guarding, out on the perimeter. So Wemby just said, I'm just going to hang out in the paint, and if you guys beat us with your three-point shot, then so be it. The Blazers end up only shooting 23% from three, 11 of 47 overall from behind that three-point line. And the inability to make three-point shots in the NBA is a death sentence. And in this case, via 5-game series, gentlemen's sweep for the San Antonio Spurs. And I need everybody, and I'm sure there's receipts out there that I wasn't willing to even really keep an eye on because I think it's a bit of nonsense. I need everybody who was down on De'Aaron Fox to give him his flowers. When it looked like the Blazers might make one final push, he put the game away in the fourth quarter, and because of that, the likes of Kelly Olynyk and Jordan McLaughlin were able to come into the game because the Spurs had it well in hand. And the Spurs move on to a playoff series for the first time in 9 years. And the first time the Spurs have won a playoff series in 5 games since Tim Duncan was on the roster.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we're talking 2016 against the Memphis Grizzlies, if I remember that correctly. So obviously the Spurs having just a great season, and they come away with what could have been a sweep. Granted, that one game where Victor left with a concussion.
Should have been a sweep.
It should have been a sweep. It was a 16-4 run. You got to give the Blazers their credit for actually coming away with that big win in Game 2. It could have made this series a lot more interesting. But I liked this series because it was a little bit of adversity, but it wasn't a lot of adversity. And the Spurs overcame that little bit of adversity, passed with flying colors on any test that was really thrown at them. And that's why I like that the Spurs closed it out here, Game 5. You and I get an extra game check out of it since we both work the game for Spurs on the broadcast and you on the in-arena feed. But on top of that, the fans get to have the energy of closing it out. And each one of these playoff games is sort of a rehearsal for the next playoff game for these Spurs fans, and they're in it. They're loud. They are certainly the sixth man after Keldon Johnson for Spurs energy. I can't say that the crowd was good enough, as they were definitely a driving factor that sort of helped the Spurs out when they hit a little bit of a lull. But San Antonio comes away with the 114-95 victory, and I think Devin Vassell had a solid game. He didn't knock down a 3, but he does contribute 10 points. Steph Castle actually fouled out of the game and didn't have the greatest game taking care of the basketball with 7 turnovers, but 15 points, 5 assists for Steph Castle. He was asked to sort of, early in the game, Donovan Clingan was guarding him and sagging way off, and Castle proceeded to knock down a couple threes that were big in those early runs when the Spurs went up 28. There was a point where the Spurs almost doubled up the Blazers. I think it was 54-28. So the Spurs were 2 points away from doubling up the Blazers. They didn't, but it was really just a dominant start of the game. The Spurs shot 67% in the first half from the field, and they were up by 20, and they also played great defense to hold the Blazers under 50 in that first half. Much more equal second half, and really it's because the Blazers came out almost literally swinging. There were so many fouls both ways, but especially from the Blazers into that second half, that second half ended up being about, I think, an hour and a half by my watch. It started the second half around 10:03 and the game ended somewhere around 11:30. So it was about an hour and a half. And some of those NBA games can be done in less than 2.5 hours. So the fact that the first half kind of went by very smoothly. Spurs did a good job of defending without fouling.
The first half is what secured the game, because the second half, it was more or less even. You know, the Blazers outscored the Spurs 30-28 in the fourth quarter, and the Spurs outscored them 21-20 in the third quarter. So it was a pretty even game in the second half. So Spurs took care of business early and held on to it. Didn't collapse in the third or the fourth quarter.
That third quarter dragged on. It really did. The Spurs were, I believe, in the bonus with 8:47 remaining in that third quarter. There's just so many fouls right away. Because as I mentioned, Portland really sort of tried to change the game by making it much more physical, and it worked to an extent there. But the Spurs they're too good, really, for the Blazers. And I think the Blazers, we've talked about it on this show, are one of the better teams in the playoffs that are above their actual seeding. I'm not necessarily saying they're a top 10 playoff team, but I find them to be better than a play-in team. I want to give the Blazers a lot of credit here as we wrap up their season. Deni Avdija started strong and hot, and he was somebody who was considered an MVP candidate in the very early goings of the season. I think sometime in December, those conversations really cooled off. Thiago Splitter, former Spur 2014 champion with San Antonio, had to take over as Chauncey Billups got in trouble after the first game of the season with gambling allegations, and that's something that you got to give Tiago Splitter a lot of credit for. We don't know if he's going to return as the head coach for the Blazers, but I think he's deserved a chance to be a head coach somewhere in this league. And then, of course, Drew Holiday and Robert Williams. It was great to see Robert Williams healthy this season. He played really well in this 5-game series against the Spurs. And Drew Holiday, he's just a floor raiser. If you have Drew Holiday on your team, you are going to improve.
Man, 17 years in the league and still performing at the highest level. It's amazing to see him out there, and good for him, man. He's probably got 3 or 4 more years in him.
It seems like it. He seems like he's in great shape, and it's so funny. He, out of UCLA, was drafted by Philadelphia before the process, if you will. He was actually traded during the process for the draft pick that would take Nerlens Noel. And Nerlens Noel hasn't been in the league, I don't even know now, probably at least 7 years. So you look at that trade as just one of the worst trades in the process because Drew Holiday didn't fit the team culture of we're trying to lose games. He was really starting to step into his own in his mid-20s, and yeah, here he is. I think he's 34. He's just he might be a little bit older than that, but he's just been a great player, contributor to championship teams. So a lot of credit to the Blazers for a great first-round series. Although the gentleman sweep, it's very nice to be polite and give them 1 game so the Spurs can close it out in 5 in San Antonio. Once again, Spurs move on to the second round, 114-95, picking up the win at the Frost Bank Center. We're not anywhere close to being done talking about Spurs and Blazers and their next opponent. But before we do that, when we come back, we're going to talk NBA playoffs, just kind of a rapid fire in our next segment. Stick with us on the starting lineup.
He didn't make the team, but he's in our starting lineup. Back to Karl Schoening.
Starting lineup continues on Ticket 760 or on YouTube. However you are joining us, we're happy that you're part of the show. I'm your starting host, Karl Schoening. On the other side, making sure everything sounds good, looks good, is LG. You can reach out to me on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, at On Air Karl. That is Karl with a K. On Air, Karl. He is at DJLG210. You can interact with us on the show. We'd love to hear from you guys. And hey, Spurs fans are excited because we already have comments. What do we got, LG?
Yeah, Texas Latina 26 is up in here. She says, it was awesome. She will be at Game 1 on Monday, May 4th. Is that set now? Is it going to be Monday, May 4th? May the 4th be with you?
No, that would be fun. It's still TBD. The tickets are on sale, and I believe May 4th would be the earliest the series would start if the Nuggets or the Timberwolves have to play a Game 7.
Yes.
So that's a good guess, May 4th. I think that would be fun if there's something out there that I didn't see. But last I checked from the Spurs press release, that tickets went on sale essentially right after the Spurs were locked into the second round, that it's TBD. And that's just because the next series will be either against Denver or Minnesota. But either way, Game 1 will be in San Antonio. Star Wars Day would be fun. May the 4th.
I heard a little rumor that it could possibly be on Saturday if Minnesota goes ahead and takes care of business tomorrow.
Yeah, that's a fair guess too. Sunday would have been Game 7 for Spurs and Blazers, and it is slotted to be Game 7 if necessary for the Timberwolves and the Nuggets. So that would be interesting if it's Saturday, because that would be ahead of both of the first round series potential Game 7. And that would be quite a turnaround for Minnesota. We're going to break that series down next segment. Is that it? Just Texas Latina?
Yeah, she had another comment. Said the third quarter was long good for her to go on a beer run.
Oh, nice. Hey, you got to look at the silver lining. I can't do that in the broadcast booth, but good for you. I won't name names, but some of the opposing broadcasters do enjoy that we're kind of on the concourse level, hidden away from everybody. Yeah. So I'm not going to name names, but it is nice to be concourse level sometimes. Take advantage of it if you're an opposing broadcaster and maybe wanting to have a little fun on the air. But yeah, anyhow, I digress. We were checking out some of the other games that happened last night in the NBA. The Philadelphia 76ers. I think, and I want to make a bold prediction right now, LG. You can mark it down and laugh at me later. You can call me a homer if you like. The 76ers are my second team. I cheer for them 80 times a year. The only 2 times I don't cheer for them are when the Spurs are playing them.
Okay.
I think Philadelphia can take this series to 7. And I think Philadelphia wins it and upsets the Celtics as long as Joel Embiid is healthy.
That's a bold prediction.
Last night, Joel Embiid dropped 33 points and had 8 assists. The man cannot run, he cannot jump, but he is a bucket.
And he's minus an appendix.
Yeah, if he didn't have his appendectomy at the end of the regular season, I don't think the 76ers are even worried about the whole play-in tournament thing. They probably get the outright 6th seed, if I had to guess. But then on top of that, Joel Embiid, say they do end up playing the Celtics either way as the 7 seed. I think Joel Embiid, it changes that series by a mile. He is somebody who can just absolutely dominate against the Celtics and their front line. Tyrese Maxey also having a great game with 25 points. It is his team. He plays 43 minutes, so he only rested 5 minutes. But Joel Embiid, he went 0 for 5 from 3, and he stopped taking threes. Thank goodness. If I had one problem with Joel Embiid, it's that he likes being sort of finesse. He wants to be able to shoot. If that man ever decided just to work in the paint, he would go off. That means he went 12 of 18 from 2-point range. He also got to the free throw line 10 times, made 9 of them, 8 assists, 4 rebounds, and a block for Joel Embiid. But you know, Neemias Queta, I don't think he can really do much against Joel Embiid. If you just let Joel Embiid eat in the paint, that there's nobody that the Boston Celtics can really throw at the 7'2", 300-pound absolute walking bucket that is Joel Embiid. And his offense makes up for probably being a negative on defense. And then, of course, Paul George, he's actually starting to play well. I think that 25-game suspension was maybe eye-opening for him and also a good opportunity for him to go into the playoffs healthy. With a fully healthy 76ers team, if they were able to get Joel Embiid from the jump in this series, I think they might have won this one in 6. They're going to have to win it in 7 as that series shifts back to Philadelphia with the Celtics up 3-2. However, I do want to go ahead and make that bold claim that I think Philadelphia can defeat Boston. And a little disappointing in this series is former Spur Derek White. I stand for him constantly. He is one of my favorite guys in the league. I think he has the ability on any given night to be the best player on the court. He obviously takes a bit of his backseat to Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum as the Jays have seniority, and they both dropped over 20 points. But he's been underwhelming. Derek White goes 0 for 4 last night and only finishes with 6 points, as he could have been somebody who made this only a 5-game series. Instead, it's going 6. And Philadelphia, if my bold prediction comes to life, will win this in 7. And then on the other side, the Knicks stopped playing with their food in Madison Square Garden, defeat the Atlanta Hawks 126-97. I felt that just based off highlight watching, because I can't watch all of these games while working some of the Spurs games, I felt that the Knicks really should have already taken this series. They have a 3-2 lead now heading back to Atlanta for Game 6. But Jalen Brunson was awesome. 39 points as well as 8 assists in 35 minutes. I really do think that he is an MVP caliber player. However, Karl Anthony Towns, OG Anunoby also contribute with double-figure scoring. How about Jeremy Sohan? He had 10 points in 3 minutes on 4-4 shooting from the field. I'm going to assume all of that was in garbage time, but shout out to Jeremy. Yeah. He got 10. He got a double-figure scoring. If somehow in 3 minutes he provided that spark and Mike Brown didn't keep him in the game, I would have to question Mike Brown in what he did, because obviously I was paying attention to the Spurs game last night, and I didn't have a chance to watch the Knicks or the Hawks game, the Knicks-Hawks game. But that was a fun little thing that I got looking at the box score. But when Jaylen Brown has those MVP caliber games, then I don't think that the Hawks have enough firepower to win that one. CJ McCollum was quiet with only 6 points on 3 made shots for Atlanta. And just because I like saying the name, Onyeka Okongwu had a good game with 16 points and on 6 of 10 shooting from the field.
Did you have to practice that?
No, well, I practice a lot of names in the NBA, but when guys have been around for more than a year, at a certain point, it just rolls off the tongue. Onyeka Okongwu is one of my favorite names, though, in the NBA. Much more difficult than Jalen Johnson, who had 18 points and 10 rebounds, 6 assists, but he hasn't quite been the Jalen Johnson that the Hawks need to win this series. I think that New York closes that one out in Atlanta as, like I say, they stop playing with their food. Checking out some of the NBA games that are going to be going on this evening. As I pull up the scores here to give everybody the accurate schedule here, the Magic have a chance to upset the Pistons as a 8 seed knocking off a 1 seed. That game is in Detroit. I want to give the Pistons the chance to win that one. The Raptors and the Cavaliers, man, you got to be mad if you're a Cavs fan. They shouldn't be struggling against the Raptors, especially if you're Dan Gilbert, the owner of the Cavaliers, who has spent for a contender and did not get the contender he wanted. And the Rockets and the Lakers going off tonight at 9 o'clock. Early indications are that Kevin Durant is out, and we will see if Austin Reeves is in for the Lakers. I think the Lakers take that series in 5, and they eventually will have their schedule slated and dated out for the Oklahoma City Thunder, and hopefully Luka Doncic could play in that series as well. Well, NBA, always a lot of fun. I do want to get back to the Spurs because it's just riding a good, fun vibe here. San Antonio moves on to the second round to the Portland Trailblazers, and the biggest hater, quite literally and figuratively, had to give Victor Wembanyama his props. I loved hearing this, and you're going to want to hear it too, because when a hater says that someone is good, then you know that he is good, and Victor Wembanyama is good. We talk about it on the starting lineup when we come back.
The takes are hot, even before the sun comes out. Back to the starting lineup.
I have no idea when the sun is coming out, but we do have some hot takes. But before we do that, I want to actually talk about the hotter take. I'm Karl Schoening, your starting host here on the starting lineup. LG is in the other room making us sound good. And the Spurs come up with the victory against the Portland Trail Blazers last night, 114-95. Take the series in 5. They will play the winner of the Timberwolves and the Denver Nuggets series. We'll get into that into a moment. But last night, Victor Wembanyama, 34 minutes, 17 points, 5 of 7 shooting from the field, knocked down one of his 2 3-point attempts, went a perfect 6 for 6 from the free throw line, grabbed 14 rebounds, 3 assists, 6 blocks, back-to-back games where Wemby had at least 5 blocks, and he did something that I did not think I would see, at least this early in his career. He made one of the biggest big man haters, who rightfully has the authority to hate on other big men, Shaquille O'Neal, give him his props. LG, I had to make sure that this wasn't AI.
You mean the Shaquille O'Neal who said we've seen Wemby before? His name is Ball.
Yeah.
No, Shaquille O'Neal.
Yeah, that's it's along those lines of he the guy who I think the only big man I've ever really heard him give his props to is Tim Duncan, because he called Tim Duncan the best power forward of all time, mainly because he doesn't want to deal with him in the center conversation, greatest centers of all time, because Tim would be ranked ahead of Shaq as not only a better player, but a better center. And then on top of that, George Mikan, he called the greatest big man of all time. And Mikan invented the Mikan drill and played well before the jump shot was popularized. But George Mikan did create perhaps the best rule change in basketball with the shot clock needing to be implemented. So I do think that I get a little bit of that. But Shaq, very much, it's hard for you to hear Shaq give a big man his praise. Here's what he had to say about Victor Wembanyama on Inside the NBA after the game last night.
I think Wemby is the first perfect big man that's ever created. Can shoot, free throws, play defense, play offense. He's a great team player. I'm happy for the Spurs. I'm happy for Wendy. And for me, in a long time, he's a joy to watch. I don't usually, talk about
like any big man. Like give any big man credit. I'm sorry, we were just thinking out loud.
I don't usually, enjoy the big man how they play now, but he plays it so perfectly. I actually accept the way he plays. So if he wants to shoot jumpers, I'm fine with him. But to me, he's like the perfect big man.
Wow.
Yeah, that's something that I was not expecting Shaq to say, and especially after last night, because I'm sure Shaq is one of these guys of the mindset of, if he were being guarded by a Drew Holiday or a Sidi Sissoko or a Tumani Kamara, then he would be just dominating in the paint. And that's not necessarily what Wemby did last night when his primary defenders were some of these smaller guys. But you see, if you watch the game, that while Wemby was being guarded by these smaller guys, it was to keep him off of the perimeter. So, of course, Wemby plays inside 15 feet. And Donovan Clingan was essentially double-teaming him the entire time. It wasn't Clingan. It was some other Blazer that it's a defense that I can't necessarily say that I've ever seen. And I've seen a lot of basketball where they've basically said, you know what, we're just going to constantly double team your best guy, do our best to take him out, and everybody else is going to have to beat us. And on that note, Wemby still has a great game, very efficient, only taking 7 shots and 5 of them made and 17 points. But the rest of the Spurs do deliver and make the Blazers say, hey, the rest of the team beat us. The Spurs as a team last night go 12 of 30 from behind the 3-point line. And that's the big difference. In the series, I wouldn't be surprised if we go back and check out all 5 games. The team that won the 3-point shooting comes away with the win. Spurs do it in 5 games, take the series 4-1. Victor Wembanyama is the perfect big man.
Yeah.
I noticed that Shaq immediately said shooting and free throws, because those are 2 things that Shaq did not have. Shaq actually could put the ball on the floor a little bit. He wasn't a ball handler by any means, especially in the 90s and 2000s, where that would have been unheard of to allow your 7-footer to bring the ball up. But I do think he wanted to play like that. Shaq very much was somebody who thought that he could perhaps be somebody who could maybe knock down a mid-range jumper. The three-point shot, definitely not in his era. But I do think that was one thing that Shaq was great at. And Wilt Chamberlain, in his book, A View from Above, actually gave Shaq the kind of credit that I wish Shaq would give other players, like he gave Victor Wembanyama, where Wilt said Shaq was so great because Wilt wished that he had done what Shaq did, where he just strictly played inside and dominated using his physical powers. But in this particular case, you look at what Wemby can do, and he can beat you inside. He can beat you outside. He can beat you by passing. He can beat you just by playing defense, really. If Wemby didn't score, he would make a bigger impact than almost anybody on either team, because he is that much of a game changer and defensive playmaker. 6 blocks last night, 7 blocks in game 4 when he came back from concussion protocol.
It was a block party. He also had 14 rebounds, all defensive, no offensive rebounds, all defensive rebounds.
It's funny, the Spurs didn't really have too many opportunities for offensive rebounds. What they finished with, I'm just going to check, 7 offensive rebounds. The Spurs were so hot shooting, especially in that first half, that they didn't really have many second chance opportunities. But yeah, Wemby is probably the perfect player. If you were to sort of say, hey, these are all the things that I want making a created player in 2K, Victor Wembanyama does that. Let me scratch the surface a little bit of their next series. It'll be the winner of the Spurs will play the winner of the Denver Nuggets or the Minnesota Timberwolves. And that one,
The beat up Timberwolves.
yeah, and so are the Nuggets, but the Timberwolves are even more beat up. And it's so weird. I'm not a fan of saying, I hope the Spurs play the Timberwolves, because they're not going to see Anthony Edwards in that series, or at least the first few games, because I just hate it. It's just the reality of the situation. Dante DiVincenzo, contributor, somebody who plays good defense and plays good offense as a role player for the Timberwolves. He's out for the season and probably next season with a ruptured Achilles. And they called it a hyperextension and a bone bruise. Very fortunate that no ligament damage. Anthony Edwards will be out for, I think, week to week is what they said the timetable was, but it's one of those injuries that if this were the regular season, Anthony Edwards would be out a month, maybe a month and a half, but he avoids any structural damage, and it is the playoffs, and Anthony Edwards seems like a dog, not just a Georgia Bulldog, but a dog of a player. I was hoping that the Spurs would be able to actually have a pretty good series against the Timberwolves with everybody healthy. You talk about the French connection with Rudy Gobert, who has played phenomenal defense all around, not just on Nikola Jokic, but to the team's scheme against the Denver Nuggets. Obviously, you're going to have to deal with the Wemby and Rudy Gobert matchup. That'll be a lot of fun. Julius Randle needs to step up and close this series out as the primary go-to guy in Game 6, because I do want to talk about that matchup a little bit more when we come back on the starting lineup. It'll be the Game 6 in Minneapolis between the Denver Nuggets and the Minnesota Timberwolves. There's some injuries in there. Aaron Gordon is also not 100% for the Denver Nuggets, but he did kind of try and go out there and play in the game before the last one. He didn't play in the last game. So either team that the Spurs play in the second round is going to be banged up. And then on top of that, I also want to touch on the NCAA. I need to get your take on this too, LG. When we come back, the NCAA wants to expand the basketball tournaments. They want to add more teams to it. There's already 68. There's 353 Division I teams. We will have to see if it's even worth having a regular season at that point. We might as well just start with conference play and let it all play out. I want to get to that one as well. And a little bit later in the starting lineup, Diana Rossini is not going to be able to escape the allegations with Mike Brable. If you haven't been following that one, it is a doozy out of the NFL and the general media sphere. Starting lineup rolls on when we come back on Ticket 760 and YouTube.
B team here. This is the starting lineup with Karl Schoening.
Hour one of the starting lineup wrapping up. I'm your host, Karl Schoening, LG, also the other voice you might hear. And I just think that I'm still buzzing about the Spurs defeating the Portland Trailblazers. It's been a long time since the Spurs have advanced in the NBA playoffs. I miss this feeling. It feels good, LG, but we're a variety talks show here. We can't just talk Spurs for 2 hours. We might have the ability, but I do want to not bore the audience who might get tired of the talk. But
you're not boring anybody.
No, I know. I enjoy talking Spurs. I love giving De'Aaron Fox his props. I love giving Wemby all of the love.
I bought his shoes. Fox's shoes.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. Those are sweet. I like your Fox shoes.
Yeah, they're the Steph Currys, but they're the De'Aaron Fox editions.
Yes, yeah. They have the really cool Fox logo. It's sort of a Steph Curry. Is it Under Armour?
It is.
Yeah. No, they're cool.
They're affordable too. They were only $75.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. I'm all about good deals like that. And I love D Fox. I know some people are unfairly harsh on him, but I was so excited when they got him. Houston kid. If I'm not mistaken, his wife is from San Antonio.
Yes.
So he's somebody who really wants to be here on more levels than just teaming up with Victor Wembanyama. He could have been the best king of all time. He could have had a forever home in Sacramento, jersey retired, all that stuff. But he very much wanted to come here and be part of the Spurs. I'm excited that we have him. And he's somebody who went to Kentucky. And this next story is very interesting because I think it's good for the teams like Kentucky. It's good for the teams like Texas. It's good for these NCAA teams that have good programs, but in this NIL world where we're just shuffling up these rosters and these good teams can get good players, but maybe just because we're talking about meshing of the roster not quite working out, they have slow starts, they have bumpy roads, we know they're good, we know it would be fun to see them in the NCAA tournament, but nobody wants to be in the NIT, and it's no longer the consolation it once was, and the NCAA is realizing it. This comes down from several sources around the NCAA media sphere, but Pete Thamel from ESPN wrote this story. The NCAA has initiated the final steps to expand the men's and women's basketball tournament to 76 teams.
Wow.
Currently at 68. They're going to jump up to 76 teams. The expansion, which has been discussed for well over a year, is on track to be formalized in the upcoming weeks and will begin this coming season. So we're talking March Madness 2027. Just a reminder, it's 2026 for anybody. 2027, sources indicate mid-May as a potential timeline for an announcement, and there are still steps to be done in terms of approvals via various NCAA communities, but those are just formalities, a source has indicated to ESPN. And I was against this kind of thought process 5-6 years ago when, if Texas, for example, somebody who is sometimes a bubble team, always a talented roster, would it be better for them? The question is to go to the NIT and maybe make the Final Four, which is at Madison Square Garden, the NIT, or get to the NCAA tournament and just see what happens, but most likely be bounced in the first, maybe second round. I love that they're expanding this because we're kind of at the point where you might as well expand it so you can get all of the big name teams, because we don't know who these teams are anymore. They don't ever announce that a player has entered the transfer portal and then gone to another team. So you sort of, just like everybody else the week before the season, say, oh, hey, college basketball season's about to start up. I love North Carolina, but I'm not necessarily keeping up with their every move. Oh, wow, our leading scorer transferred last year. We didn't realize that he's gone over the summer. Who are these new 8 players? Especially for a team like UTSA or Texas State, they've had to rebuild their rosters these last couple seasons just because guys can go off wherever they want. They're almost these middle grounds. But 76 teams, LG, I love it because it almost eliminates the feeling of being snubbed. If you don't make the 76 team field, then you don't deserve to be in the NCAA tournament.
I think it's too much, man. It's already hard enough to fill out the bracket. Now it's going to be even more difficult.
Yeah. No, I get that. More studying involved for your March Madness bracket that's going to be up in flames.
I didn't study at all this past March Madness.
You shouldn't.
No, I
it's a waste of time.
I just picked teams. I was like, oh, I like their name. Oh, they got a cool mascot. I just went full on, no research whatsoever, and I did horribly.
That's how it goes sometimes. And then sometimes the person who's never watched a game of basketball has the best bracket in their pool. It's a fun thing that we do, and I think that you look at it, if you don't make the 76 team field for whatever reason, then that's it. No discussions needed. You're probably not anywhere near being good enough. We're talking about some of these stolen bids by the teams that win their conference tournament but had just a terrible overall regular season that are keeping out these teams. That's not going to happen anymore. If you are a fringe team, you're in. I haven't quite done the math on it, LG. Maybe you're a bit smarter than me. 76 teams means that they're adding only about 8 teams, right? So there's already the sort of play-in tournament because it's the field of 64, and then there's the 4 more teams that are in the play-in tournament. So now we're just adding 8 more, so that means there's 12 more teams from the field of 64. I'm probably confusing everybody else with this impromptu math, but I guess it means essentially we're talking another week of basketball or another weekend for the play-in into the field of 64. We haven't seen how what our formalities are going to shake it up, but that's just something I really wanted to touch on. We'll revisit it once it's an official story, I guess sometime in May, but just one, more thing to keep an eye on in the ever-changing NCAA landscape. And that's just something, if you didn't know about it, don't be shocked about it. Now you do know about it because it's going to be coming next year.
I'm still not down with it. I don't like it. I want the field of 64 back.
I pretty much agree. It's just sort of where we're at this point. The other thing that I haven't quite wrapped my head around, and I almost want to talk about it tomorrow, I might bring it back up again, is that the NBA lottery is going to be changing how they do it. And this came out today from Shams. It's just a proposal, but the NBA was not happy about the, tanking that was going on. And I want to look into this a little bit more in the next hour, but they're offering a solution to where it'll actually penalize you for being a bottom team, which is very interesting. And they're also going to expand the lottery from 14 teams to 16 teams, which I also find very interesting. Want to touch on that. Of course, when we come back, we're going to talk a lot more Spurs and Trailblazers and how they shake up against whoever their next opponent is. I do want to get into Diana Rossini and the Mike Vrabel's conversation because that has so many angles that I'm very interested in discussing, and the internet finds out. Don't try and do a scandal because the internet somehow is everywhere and knows your every move, and that is really the story that has been coming out here in the Diana Rossini scandal, and we'll have to see how that shakes out with how she's maybe manipulating the A.J. Brown trade market as well. And then, of course, I do want to touch on a couple more NBA news and notes, and I want to know what you're streaming. I think that everybody needs to binge watch a show, and I would need to be introduced to some of these bingeable shows, as I always like to find out what I want to watch next and not just repeat something like Game of Thrones or How I Met Your Mother and just having it on as constant background because I've seen it and I almost don't even care and I lose interest. My attention span has gone down the drains, by the way. I need to discuss how I can maybe get better attention span as well. But more Spurs talk when we come back on hour 2 of the starting lineup here on Ticket 760 and YouTube.
Silver and black, and no excuses. Start your day with a starting lineup.
Absolutely no excuses indeed. Hour 2 rolls on, and the silver and black put away the Portland Trailblazers last night, 114-95. This is the starting lineup. I'm your host, Karl Schoening, starting at the audio technician and the co-host here on the show, LG.
Yo.
And man, the Frost Bank Center was a rockin' last night. 114-95, man. Hey, it could have been even bigger. Spurs jump out to a 28-point lead.
A blackout T-shirt night.
Oh yeah, no, those were cool. Those were cool shirts, and everybody wore them. I think one of the few cases where I say bullying works. That if you were shown on the screen not wearing your T-shirt, there would be that little sign that said "Put on your T-shirt."
I framed up a bunch of people. I was like, oh, here's one dude and doesn't have the shirt on.
Yeah,
put him on the Jumbotron.
For those of you that might not have caught on yet, this is a new San Antonio sports talk show, the starting lineup. LG and I, you're a lot more Puro San Antonio than I am.
Say that again?
Oh, I don't want to. No.
Puro San Anto loud.
Hey.
That's what the shirt said. They said Puro San Anto loud.
Yeah, I loved it. It was great. It was a good time out there with the Spurs having blackout shirts. I still liked that game 1 against the Blazers the best.
That was unique.
Well, they're only allowed to, as far as I understand, they're only allowed to do those Fiesta/City Edition jerseys once in the playoffs, and they elected to kick it off with a bang. Which is a shame because those are the cool jerseys, the Fiesta colors.
Oh, that kind of stinks. I was hoping they'd bring it back for every first game of the series.
That would be cool, but no, I believe Dan Weiss made that point on the air, and I was disappointed to hear that. But for those of you that don't know, this is a San Antonio sports talk show. LG runs a camera in the in-house feed on the Lighthouse at the Frost Bank Center. I'm there on the radio broadcast with Dan Weiss as the studio host. I host the pregame, postgame, and halftime show. Dan, obviously, on the call as the new radio voice of the Spurs. And I suppose if my last name Schoening is familiar to you, it's probably because you know my dad, Bill Schoening, 24 years as the radio play-by-play voice. And, I do need to say, for those of you that aren't aware of my resume, the Spurs did hire me to do other things for the last 12 years before I got on the radio broadcast. I've been on the Austin Spurs. I've been on the SAFC broadcasts and anything else that they would just keep me involved with. And I always do my best, and I always never got any bad feedback. Only feedback I've ever gotten, actually, was from Chip England, former shooting coach for the Spurs.
Oh, yeah,
and
the shot guru.
Yeah, he told me to be more pro-Homer Spurs on Austin Spurs broadcasts.
Okay.
So, yeah, and I was also on WOAI postgame around 2018, and he told me that right before a Bucks game against Giannis at the time, and I just said, okay, I can be super pro-Spurs. We are pro-Spurs here today as San Antonio. A true group effort. All 5 starters score in double figures, and
I was gonna say before you get in there, where is Chip these days? Chip
Oklahoma
England.
City.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and he turned Lou Dort into one of the best two-way players in the NBA because Lou Dort is somebody who was just a hard-nosed defender who could not reliably hit a jump shot, and I think they locked him in a gym with Chip, and now Lou Dort has sort of become a villain in the NBA as he was doing all that chippy, hard-nosed defending before, but now that he can knock down a 3 and people know him a little bit better, and obviously the Thunder have elevated to NBA champions and contender status, Lou Dort is not as liked as he was back before Chip got to make him a sharp-shooting three-pointer.
Come back, Chip.
I love Chip. I enjoy him. It's one of those funny people that, as I mentioned, just around the Spurs so much. He was an interesting character in my life as well. But just to wrap up some of those numbers, Dylan Harper, yet another great game. 17 points off the bench in 26 minutes on 6 of 9 shooting from the field. He knocked down his only 3-point attempt, got to the free throw line 5 times, made 4 free throws. For a rookie, he might be the best at taking care of the basketball. Only 1 assist, but only 1 turnover and 3 steals, meaning that 1 turnover is pretty much negated +2 for creating those 3 steals. Anytime he coughed up the ball, he got the ball back twice. I continue to be just amazed at Dylan Harper. He is somebody who will probably go down as an all-star sooner than later.
Doesn't look like a rookie.
He does not look like a rookie at all.
I bought his shoes also.
Oh,
But-
yeah?
Yeah.
He has shoes already?
Yeah, I had to return them though because they're too narrow.
Ah.
I've got wide feet, so they didn't fit right, but they were awesome. They were like orange, green, and purple.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. Do you have a picture? You'll have to show me sometime.
Yeah, I'll show you. They're the Nike GT2s, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, Dylan Harper, I think I don't think he should have gotten 6th man of the year over Keldon Johnson. I think Dylan Harper should have gotten 6th man of the year votes. He ends up finishing 4th in rookie of the year voting. I think he doesn't deserve to win rookie of the year because the other players ahead of him had larger roles, but accepting his role, Dylan Harper, I think, played that role and contributed to winning just as much as Con Knippel and VJ Edgecombe, who finished above him in Rookie of the Year race. He was great tonight. Very steady hand. The much-needed backup point guard that the Spurs were looking for after trading Trey Jones in the De'Aaron Fox trade. So big shout-out to Dylan Harper and his contributions. The Spurs won by so much. We had a Bismack Biyombo sighting last night, a Kelly Olynyk sighting, and I was just so excited that the Spurs were able to put that one away. Not necessarily put it away early, but they created enough of a separation that when the Blazers did eventually make their run in the second half, I wasn't worried. And the Spurs as a unit just continued to be I think this is part of the Spurs culture. They realize that they, as a sum, are greater than the total of their parts. And what I mean by that is you don't really force feed De'Aaron Fox and have him put up 20-plus field goal attempts per game. De'Aaron Fox realized that the Spurs needed to get a little bit of offensive output from him in the fourth quarter when the Blazers, I believe, cut it to 9 around the 8-minute mark of the fourth quarter. And De'Aaron Fox, I think he made 3 straight buckets on way to 13 points in the fourth quarter. D-Fox finished with 21 points.
Mr. Clutch, Mr. Fourth Quarter coming through.
Fourth quarter Fox, as Dan Weiss likes to call him.
There you go.
So they called him, he wore number 5.
He was Fox Force 5.
Yeah, you were the one who told me about
Yep.
that. He might need to be Fox Force 4 here in San Antonio, rocking number 4.
Doesn't really ring off the tongue as good as Fox Force 5 did, because that's a reference from Pulp Fiction, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, that makes a little more sense. No, the Kings fans loved D. Fox, and I'd stay away from the toxic side of any fan base. I'm an Eagles fan, so I stay away from the toxic side of any fan base. And there's some toxic people within the Spurs that want to kind of trash on D. Fox, and I get it. Too much is given, much is expected kind of thing. De'Aaron Fox is expected to sort of be the second franchise player after Victor Wembanyama on this team, and more often than not, he delivers. He delivered last night. Steph Castle actually ended up fouling out of the game, but he continued to make life hard for Denny Avdia. Avdia actually continues to be just a stellar player, but he only goes 1 of 6 from 3, 22 points in 32 minutes, and he had the best night of any Blazer by far. Jeremy Grant, solid game, 12
Correct
points.
me if I'm wrong, but did Stephon Castle get a technical foul for pushing Denny?
He did.
Okay, I thought so.
Yeah, I'm glad he brought it up because that's an interesting note. I think it was getting chippy, and it was good that this series didn't go to 6 because Avdia was getting tired of how physical the Spurs were playing him. Avdia is sort of known as a foul merchant, somebody who gets to the free throw line a lot by...
And he's like a bull in a china shop.
Yeah,
he's going to injure somebody at some point just rolling into the paint like that.
Very reckless and out of control, but also some people kind of call him a flopper. I didn't see all that much of that in this series. Avdia just came out, played, lowered his head down, tried to get to the rim a lot of the time. And the Spurs countered that by saying, hey, if they're going to call a foul on you, you're going to get fouled. And that's what it sort of felt like. And they called that technical on D-Fox because I thought that they should have just called the first foul, but he shoved his forearm into Avdia's ribs out on the perimeter, and then they didn't call that foul. And then he shoves his forearms into Avdia's ribs again, didn't call that foul. Third time, they finally called the foul, and then they teed up Steph, and they should have just called the foul the first time around. They were letting Steph play. They were letting them play on the court, and I just sort of disagreed with that technical foul. But Avdia, great series, his first playoff series as well as he comes over from Washington. He is going to be a key piece to the Trailblazers rebuild as they try and make a big push to improve next year. But this year, San Antonio eliminates them in 5 games. Last night in Game 5 in San Antonio, 114-95. And the Spurs move on to the second round. Let's talk about that matchup. Coming up next on the starting lineup, the Spurs are going to be playing either the Minnesota Timberwolves or the Denver Nuggets in the second round. I have a preference. You probably have a preference if you think about it, but I think it's okay either way, and I'll give you my reasoning why as we resume here on the starting lineup on Ticket 760, YouTube, the various other ways that you can get involved with the show. We'd love to hear from you, and we will read your comments on the air if you interact with us on YouTube or with us on Twitter. I'll tell you about how to do that when we come back on the starting lineup.
Your home for Spurs talk. This is the starting lineup with Karl Schoening.
That's right. It is your home for Spurs talk. I'm Karl Schoening, starting as the voice coming through your speakers, the host of the starting lineup. Joining me on the show today, LG, and DJ LG 210 is his handle.
That's
everywhere.
Right, 210, baby.
210. Yes, I should mention a 0, not an O, right?
That's true. That's
Yes.
the telemarketer in me. You always got to say 0 instead of O.
Yeah, I feel like San Antonio people know, but just in case they
know.
accidentally put 21 in the letter O, they can't find you.
Countdown City.
Yes,
210.
Military City, Countdown City, Honking City. I wanted to go honking, but I feel like people would think that I was being a jerk if I did it on the highway. I need to go to Commerce next chance I get, but we had to come here and get the show rolling.
That's true. You got to be careful who you honk at if you're not, right after a Spurs win or downtown. People do go honking here on the northeast side, though.
Yeah. I didn't want to wake up your neighborhood, though.
It was a little late. Yeah, a little late.
You guys can get involved with the show. You can reach out to me as well on social media at On Air Karl. That's Karl with a K. At On Air Karl. You can join us on YouTube. Leave a comment. And,
subscribe to this thing, too.
Yeah.
Starting Lineup Live on YouTube. Hit us up with a subscription. We're trying to hit a goal of 500. That's our first goal, 500 subscribers. And then we could do some cool things. Super chats will get activated. Members only stuff will be activated once we hit that milestone.
Love it.
Yep.
Oh, those are things that I'm probably somewhat aware of, but I appreciate you plugging them and all of those fun things. We talk Spurs. We talk basketball in general. That's my favorite sport. We talk general topics if you're just joining us here in the first week of the starting lineup. And an extension of the Spurs talk right now is who is their next opponent? So for those of you that really have only been locked in on the Spurs defeating the Portland Trailblazers in 5 games, you might not be paying much attention to what's going on the other side of the Spurs side of the bracket, where the Denver Nuggets are trailing the Minnesota Timberwolves 3-2. The Timberwolves actually jumped out to a 3-1 series lead. Ayo Dosunmu had a great 43-point game in Game 4 to make it that 3-1 lead. But within that game, Dante DiVincenzo leaves with an Achilles tear. He's going to be out for the rest of the season, probably next season. And Anthony Edwards appears to have maybe in the second quarter, maybe gotten some ligament damage on his knee. He avoids ligament damage, but it is hyperextended and a bone bruise, and he is week to week, as they said. So he will not be finishing up this playoff series against the Denver Nuggets. The Nuggets are also banged up. Jamal Murray played in all 5 games up to this point, but there was some conversation about him being potentially on the IR, and maybe the player that you should be scared of the most if you're a Spurs fan to potentially be a guy that's not necessarily a Wemby stopper, but a Wemby slower downer. Aaron Gordon is also dealing with injuries. He only played 3 of the first 5 games of this series. And on top of all of that, MVP candidate, MVP finalist Nikola Jokic is not having a great series. Sure, you look at his numbers and he's putting up his numbers. That's because he's a high usage rate kind of player. But from 3-point distance in 5 games, Nikola Jokic is shooting 19%. I'll repeat. From behind the 3-point line, Nikola Jokic is shooting 19%. And that's kind of been a big driving factor of Rudy Gobert's defense against him was, if you want to beat us with a 3-point shot, go ahead. I'm going to protect the rim. And Rudy Gobert has been phenomenal in this series. He's not putting up great numbers on the box score, but he's doing the little things, the positioning things. He and Jaden McDaniels are locking down Nikola Jokic and making Jamal Murray's life a little bit harder. And if you can get big games from Ayo Dosunmu and Julius Randle, I think you're going to always have the consistency of Jaden McDaniels and Rudy Gobert on the defensive side of things that will just really put this series away in Game 6. If it goes back to Denver for Game 7, I think Denver wins it in 7, mainly because, like I said, Anthony Edwards won't be playing the remainder of that series. Neither will Dante DiVincenzo. Those 2 players are just so important to what the Timberwolves try to do. But they do still have Julius Randle, and Julius is averaging 19.5 points per game in this series. He also is not a 3-point threat, so I would like to see him kind of bully ball a little bit the Denver Nuggets. And if Dosunmu can have another lightning in a bottle game, Julius Randle takes care of what he can on the offensive side of the ball. Maybe, just maybe, because I think he's going to have to be big. Former Spur Kyle Anderson, a.k.a. Slow-Mo. He could have a big game potentially.
Forgot about Slow-Mo.
It's funny. He was our draft pick in the 2014 draft after the Spurs won the NBA championship. So he's been around. He's a veteran. He knows how to play in the playoffs. If you can get a pretty good game out of him, then maybe we're talking about the Timberwolves taking a Game 6 victory, closing out the Nuggets. And I would assume, and I have no real idea because the NBA doesn't decide these things until the series are set, I would assume the Spurs and the Timberwolves would start their series this weekend. That would be fun, potentially a Saturday. But my guess is, if I could sort of say I'm going to predict the future, which I'm terrible at predicting the future. If I predict the future pretty good, I probably wouldn't be a talk show host, if you know what I mean. But I think the Nuggets come away with the next 2 wins. They erase the 3-1 deficit because of the injuries. And that's something that a lot of Spurs fans maybe dreaded a couple weeks ago, but the Nuggets just aren't really playing well. They probably should have been eliminated if Anthony Edwards were healthy. And in this particular case, the Nuggets are going to be limping out of a 7-game series into a well-rested Spurs team who will be coming off of a week's rest because they closed out the Blazers in 5. And on top of that, they'll have had an opportunity to scout what maybe works against either the Denver Nuggets or the Minnesota Timberwolves for this whole week.
As a Spurs fan, I want the Minnesota Timberwolves just because it's the path of least resistance to the next round, you hope. But as a basketball fan, I would like to face the Denver Nuggets.
The league wants Denver. The league wants Denver to come back, win this in 7 series. They want the Victor Wembanyama, Nikola Jokic matchup. I kind of want that as well as a basketball fan because Jokic is on the back 9 of his career. He is not going to be somebody that we see Wemby match up against in his future in Wemby's prime. We're going to have plenty of opportunities for Anthony Edwards and Wemby to match up. This doesn't feel like the right series for the first Timberwolves / Anthony Edwards versus Spurs / Victor Wembanyama matchup. I think you're right, very much so, path of least resistance. And I hate saying that because I want a good series. But I keep saying this as well. If the Spurs win the 2026 NBA championship 5 years from now, no one's going to say, oh, but Anthony Edwards didn't play in that second-round matchup. In fact,
No.
the Spurs, if I'm not mistaken, Dan Weiss dropped it on the broadcast last night. When the Spurs go up 20 points, they are 30-1, and I want to say that one was against the Minnesota Timberwolves, granted probably back in 2025 part of the season, but the Timberwolves might be able to beat the Spurs in a straight-up series. I don't particularly see the Timberwolves beating the Spurs in the series as they are currently banged up, coming in bandaged to the Frost Bank Center whenever that game 1 would be. Denver Nuggets would be a slightly more competitive series. All 3 games against between the Spurs and the Denver Nuggets, the team that was leading most of the game ended up losing, and that last game in Denver was so epic. And then the Spurs were kind of questioned why they rested everybody, or at least Victor Wembanyama and a couple other players against the Denver Nuggets in the last game of the regular season, which could have sent the Nuggets over to the Thunder side of things. It is what it is.
They needed to.
Yeah.
Wemby was still recovering from that rib injury.
Yeah, I understand that thought process of it. And I also kind of think, you think about the mental game there. If the Spurs were trying to win and they don't win, then the Nuggets have a lot more confidence going into the eventual playoff series. But instead, David Roddy went off against the Spurs, and that was the deciding factor of game 82, which had the Nuggets on the Spurs side of the bracket. I don't think it'll come back to haunt them, but I do think that the Nuggets would be a tougher matchup than the Timberwolves as currently constructed. But either way, the Spurs are hosting the first game of the second round against either the Timberwolves or the Nuggets. We will certainly watch the rest of that series with much interest. Hour 2 of the starting lineup rolls on, and I want to talk about one of these stories that shakes up how the media world works. And it's just one of the reasons why the internet always finds out. Find out what I'm talking about when we come back on the starting lineup.
ticket for the best Spurs talk. Back to the starting lineup.
Always talking Spurs, of course, still buzzing about the Spurs picking up Game 5 against the Portland Trail Blazers and advancing to the NBA Western Conference semifinals. That is a to-be-decided opponent against the Timberwolves or the Nuggets. Watching that series with so much interest. But I like to keep my eye on the rest of the sports world. This is the starting lineup. I'm Karl Schoening. We talk more than just Spurs. LG also tuning into this. And, LG, it's funny. You didn't know anything about this story when I brought it up to you. And it's very interesting because I feel like legacy media in general is ignoring this story. You don't even necessarily know who Diana Russini is, do you?
No.
So, Diana Russini is an NFL reporter. And she's a longtime, quote-unquote, insider, right? Like, she knows information. She puts it out there, under the veil of, quote-unquote, sources. And she has widely been known as somebody who is respected in our industry. She's been on broadcasts, ESPN for sure. She was most recently with The Athletic. And this past year, Eagles fans have been really frustrated with her because it feels like she had been putting out something that felt like fake news, but there was no way to confirm that it was fake news about A.J. Brown being unhappy and an issue in the locker room in Philadelphia. And for those of you that don't know, A.J. Brown, when he's on his game, is arguably the best receiver in football. He has established himself as one of the best receivers in football. Was a big reason the Eagles won the Super Bowl a couple seasons ago. And there was a little bit of maybe turmoil last year, but anytime AJ was asked about it, he gave a very diplomatic answer saying, I love being here, I love my teammates, etc. It didn't come across as inauthentic either, but in would come Diana Russini sort of saying, hey, no, that's not what I hear. I also hear that the Rams and the Patriots are very interested in monitoring the situation and would love to make some big bids, knowing that he's a big receiver and these are two of his preferred destinations as he wants out of Philadelphia. So Mike Vrabel is the head coach of the New England Patriots, one of these rumored teams that A.J. Brown is interested in. And I didn't think much of this, but I was talking to one of my Eagles fans friends, and he was asking me, how does Diana Russini know this information? Why is she the only one putting this out there? And at first I thought about it, and just sort of being a media member who knows who Diana Russini is, I remembered that her husband was an Eagles fan. And I said, well, her husband's an Eagles fan. Maybe he has something to do with that being, an inside source there. I know her husband's successful. I don't know in what, but she was married to an Eagles fan, and that's just sort of something I knew in the back of my head. Page 6 is one of these online articles, and they put out photos of Mike Vrabel's and Diana Russini at a resort looking like they're together in Arizona. This is just a few weeks ago. I think about 3 weeks ago, maybe a little bit longer. This story's been going on. And at first, both of them refuted it, said, hey, we were there with separate groups. We saw each other. We're friendly, coworker environment kind of thing. And they thought it was laughable that the internet was insinuating that they were in an improper relationship. And then they basically just sort of brushed it off and hoped that it would go away. The internet is the best private investigator there is. So not only was that sort of brushed off and not, brushed off by the internet, but they started to find these little breadcrumbs that Diana Russini was quietly putting away. Perhaps most damning to her is that she was spotted 6 years ago in 2020 with Mike Vrabel at a bar, and they were looking very intimate. And this starts to bring in some of her credibility. And now anything with Diana Russini and Mike Vrabel starts to get looked at with a little bit bigger of a magnifying glass. There's some insinuation, some things that you can maybe piece together in what you think about this, but Diana Rossini had a son, and one of the tweets that's gone viral is she says, "I keep looking at my almost 4-day-old son, Michael." Michael Vrabel is Mike Vrabel's full name, and I keep wondering who are the best Vrabels in the NFL to have coached and played. It's like, ooh, that doesn't look good considering all the situation coming out. But okay, you can maybe still explain that away. And then Mike Vrabel comes out and basically throws alcohol onto this fire by saying he's going to miss day 3 of the NFL draft to seek counseling. And they don't get into specifics, what that means, what have you. However, it basically is to a point where Vrabel is sort of admitting something is happening here. They're no longer denying it. On top of all of that, somewhere in this time span, Diana Rossini has deleted her X account. She was let go by The Athletic, who at first defended her and then said, "We've decided to let go of Rossini." She puts out a statement saying, "Hey, I did nothing wrong, but the internet essentially is saying that I did something wrong and groupthink is forcing me to resign." It gets worse, LG, and this is why you have to always be careful about everything in your digital
This sounds like a
footprint.
tabloid story.
This is the biggest part of the tabloid story. It's definitely a tabloid
Is
story.
Page 6 a tabloid?
They probably are.
Okay,
Yeah.
thought so. It sounds like something that would be on TMZ or something like that.
Yeah, it very much so. And now it's yeah, right. And now it's getting to the point where the internet finds out. There's a guy named, I think his name's Adam Farmer. He's just a Twitter journalist. He's taking down this NFL insider's career from his kitchen when he live streams. But he has a big article about all of this, and one of the things that he found that the internet also found was while Vrabels was coaching the Tennessee Titans, there was a 4-week losing streak that they were in the midst of. There was a Spotify playlist that Diana Rossini made for Mike Vrabel that was sort of a get better soon playlist, feel better soon, good vibes.
Yeah, she made him a mixtape.
Yeah, this gets out on the internet and it's immediately deleted afterwards. But the damage already done, plenty of screenshots and recordings and other people that can confirm that Diana Rossini and Mike Vrabel shared this playlist. And this story just keeps snowballing to the point where this will probably help out the Eagles' cause, because it does seem that the Eagles have maybe decided to move on from A.J. Brown, who's a very expensive receiver. They decided to go with Mekhi Lemons in the first round, a receiver out of Southern Cal, and it looks like they're starting to progress for life after A.J. Brown. However, the tie-in here is because of all of this, A.J. Brown might be sold for a very big package to the Patriots to avoid tampering hits. As you know, this has almost gotten to the, as you've probably pieced together, this has gotten to the point where it's very clear that an NFL head coach had an improper relationship with an insider reporter that's putting out all of this stuff that makes one player look bad on various levels, so another team could acquire him, and the inappropriate relationship leads to the Eagles maybe getting some really good value for A.J. Brown. Things didn't really end well for A.J. Brown and the Eagles last year. When they needed him most, he was dropping catches. So maybe this revamped wide receiver core and whatever package they get for A.J. Brown will send the Eagles back into contenders. And Diana Rossini, her husband's going to be pretty happy because the consolation silver lining is the Eagles could improve over this. We'll see if the NFL or ESPN are also going to get involved in that conversation. I'm keeping an eye on that because it has so many implications, so many ways that I didn't even really discuss there. But the Diana Rossini situation is not going away. It's not really getting talked about. I wanted to talk about it. And thing I want to talk about when we come back on the starting lineup is, what are you binge watching? I need new shows. We'll talk about it on Ticket 760.
to the starting lineup.
Wrapping up hour 2 of the starting lineup, I'm starting at your host, Karl Schoening, starting at the man doing it all behind the scenes, LG. And I love sports, but I need to take breaks from them sometimes, LG. And that doesn't necessarily mean taking a break from my screen, unfortunately. I probably should go out and touch grass a little bit more often, but I think I also just need some shows to binge watch, no matter what I'm doing. And you left out a 20, and you have some nice things around here.
Keep it down.
I saw a 50-year anniversary Tim Duncan bobblehead over here that was given out, and it's in its box. Oh my goodness,
yeah. That actually belongs to Puma.
It feels like it would be a nice little backdrop here behind me on this wall.
It used to be part of the backdrop when the studio was in the other room, but since I rearranged things and created a different studio, I took everything out. So, and he's supposed to take all that junk home. That whole box is his.
Oh, he's got to get on that. It's just putting in his car. But I'm getting to a point on this. You somewhat introduced me to the show.
Your Friends and Neighbors, yes?
Yeah, Your Friends and Neighbors is the name of the show, and it's a viral meme. What's the name of the main character? The actor? Do you know his name?
Coop.
Yeah,
Coop.
The character in the show is named Coop.
Oh, John Hamm.
John Hamm. Yeah, John Hamm is, and he's a fairly famous actor. He
was famous, made his heyday in the show Mad Men.
Okay, yeah. I haven't seen that, but I've heard good things. We could add that to the binge list.
He's also the new Fletch. Took Chevy Chase's place in the new series of Fletch, which it's actually pretty good. So.
I haven't even seen the original Fletch, but I do know Chevy Chase.
You're missing out. You're missing out.
He's very amusing. I like John Hamm, but he actually went viral from a clip, if I'm not mistaken, in the first season of this show, and they just came out with the second season of Friends and Neighbors. Your Friends and Neighbors?
Yes.
Your Friends and Neighbors.
Yes. With Olivia Munn.
Yeah. And there's that song. I don't know if you've seen it, but like John Hamm's just vibing out in the club, and it's sort of become a meme, if you will, around the internet. It's sort of already past its prime as a meme, but you started watching it. I watched episode 1. I am hooked. I am probably, despite the fatigue that I'm feeling after the show, I'm going to go watch episode 2 after this. And I need to know what else I need to be binging. Is there a new show? Is there an old show I need to give a shot? Can you give me a less than 30-minute show for me to binge? What are you binging right now, LG?
Right now, I'm on Hulu. I'm binging a show called Paradise on Hulu, which is about, I won't spoil it for you, but it's about a Secret Service agent who uncovers a global conspiracy, basically.
Cool.
Yeah. It's a thriller, murder mystery, and science fiction all wrapped up in one.
I can dig that. Yeah, Hulu comes out with some heat sometimes. They have all of the Fargos, if I'm not mistaken, as well.
I love the Fargos. They're great. John Hamm is actually in the last season of Fargo. He's the star of it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
The last meaning most recent, or are they done making Fargos?
The most recent season, yes.
Okay, because, that feels like it's too popular, and the way they do it, Fargos can go on forever because they overlap, but they aren't necessarily intertwined, right?
They overlap and they are intertwined actually, but you don't. Yeah, you can watch them out of order.
Yes.
You don't have to watch them in order. They're not chronological.
That's what I was getting at. It's not like I'm just throwing out for sake of example Suits, where season 1 very much clearly builds into season 2 into season 3.
I do recommend watching it in order.
Okay,
though. I do recommend it, and also the series Fargo is a direct sequel from the movie Fargo.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's a lot of little Easter eggs where everything connects.
Okay. I'm not on Hulu right now. I have HBO Max and I have Apple streaming and, of course, ESPN Plus. But, 60 for 60s are fun, or 30 for 30s, I should say. 30 for 30s are fun. But, we're talking non-sports right now. I rewatched Ted Lasso, which is sports, but it's not designed to be sports. It has the soccer tie-in, but it's an amusing show. I rewatched it for maybe the third time. I enjoy Ted Lasso. If you haven't,
would you like to get one of those lip mics? You know?
Oh, yes. No, for sure. I probably need one of those for Spurs games because I have to wear noise-canceling headphones to protect my hearing in the Frost Bank Center. So we're using something similar to these Rode mics that we're on right now, and it's too loud in the Frost Bank Center for me to really go live with those mics. Maybe next year I'll figure out if I'm going to wear
You can buy those lip mics. They're about $1,000.
Ooh, too much.
Yeah.
Too rich for my blood. Okay, never mind in that case. But yeah, I'm trying to think because I have comfort shows and I don't have Netflix at the moment, but I used to when I had Netflix almost just to have it on as background noise, watch How I Met Your Mother. That was a show I watched several times.
I have several shows that are background for me. Sopranos is one. Sunny in Philadelphia is another one. Seinfeld, when I had Netflix, was one for a long time.
Seinfeld, yes. That's one of these shows that I wonder what Gen Z thinks about Seinfeld.
Apparently, they find it very offensive.
Really?
Yeah.
I can see that. I understand. It's also every one of their problems could probably be solved with cell phones, social media these days. There was a great Twitter account of Seinfeld Today that came up with
I remember.
Current events Seinfeld. It was great.
Curb's another one, Curb Your Enthusiasm, that I binge all the time, but it's also now, I've seen it so many times, it's just background stuff.
Do I have an issue here, LG? And I probably do. With exceptions to the rule, I have trouble starting shows that have been on for 20 seasons. I enjoy Always Sunny, but I'm not going to be able to start from episode 1 of Always Sunny and watch it through.
I actually just restarted it because I just signed up for Hulu again. That's why I'm watching Paradise. But I now Sunny in Philadelphia. I started it from episode 1,
and they're on season 18, and
18's about to come out.
It's wild how much the production value has gone. The cameras just look so much better.
Oh yeah,
18
definitely.
years ago to today.
Yeah, season 1 doesn't even have Danny DeVito. They hadn't casted him yet.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's true, and he nails his role. As someone whose family's from Philadelphia, you will find people exactly like Danny DeVito walking around that city. And
Frank Reynolds.
As amusing as DeVito / Frank is in It's Always Sunny, it would be exhausting to meet these people, much less have them as family members.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. But I need your help. Hit me up on X / Twitter, whatever you want to call it, at On Air Karl. That is On Air KARL, to tell me what I should add to my binge watching. I told you my parameters are that I have ESPN Plus, Apple TV, and HBO Max, and I do have Prime as well. The Boys. Oh, you haven't watched The Boys, have you?
I've watched almost every season.
Oh,
I haven't started the new season, and I haven't finished the season before that, but I've watched a lot of it.
And you didn't watch Generation V, which is the
I watched like 3 episodes.
Spin-off
I watched like 3 episodes of it, but it was too like high school kid stuff for me.
It feels in a weird way like, you and I are so disconnected from Gen Z probably because we're 2 single guys that are millennials, that it feels like Gen V is sort of a spin-off of, hey, this is what Gen Z is like. They're all currently in college, addicted to their phones, trying to be influencers.
Yep.
I get why it could be off-putting. I found it amusing. I thought that was a nice sort of change of pace, but ties into the story of The Boys. The Boys is very much a good watch, and I enjoy it on Prime. Have to find a few other things to
I know
watch.
You said no sports, but Winning Time, the story of the Lakers on HBO.
Yes, I enjoyed that. I'm a little bummed that it got canceled. Probably a little too expensive because it was all shot on film.
Yep, the film was expensive.
Yeah, and in all honesty, it misrepresented some real characters, and I think in a weird way, if you're going to tell a story with real people, don't make somebody like Jerry West look like a jerk.
It's a comedy, though. It's a comedy.
I like the arc, and it's a comedy, and they did a great job with Dr. Bus and Jeannie Bus. But Winning Time, I enjoy it, and it's only 2 seasons long, worth the watch if you are especially a Lakers fan or an NBA fan. Oh, we had a fun show today on the starting lineup. Spurs moving on to the second round. We're gonna have to break down the Timberwolves and the Nuggets and how the Spurs match up with them and how they win up against them in the regular season on tomorrow's episode. LG on the other side. I've been Karl Schoening, thanking y'all for joining us on the starting lineup. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Got to tune in 760. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page. Catch y'all later. Have a good rest of your day, y'all.